All right. So our first book club meeting for the year. Going to be discussing chapter 13, 14, 15, and 16. I posted the questions to the side here. Shouldn't take too long. Even though it's a lot of chapters, it really just it had some good information, but I kind of feel like they use more words than they need to just to make the book lengthy. So so you just kind of gotta, read in between those and get to the point. All right, so first chapter, chapter 13. Are there any quotes, passages, or scenes you found particularly compelling in chapter 13? Let me see.
And this is just chapter 13.
Yep, just chapter 13 right now. I'm really liking how it is giving so much information about extra details to put in the notes or additional information section of the journal. I'm really liking that because they really don't tell you to do that. They just say, if anything outside the ordinary happens, then put in notes. And it's like, well, can you be more specific about out of the ordinary? Like exactly what would be a good thing to put in the note section. So I love that they keep mentioning that here. Like it says, if you go ahead and you start the notarization for some reason, you have to refuse to do it, but you already have the signer's information. You're going to put in there refuse to do it because of, whatever the reason is.
Yes.
So I like that. And then I was looking here. I had highlighted this note section where he always has case notes, and I always like to read them because they are, real life happenings, So
Right.
the one on page 184 in particular is the one I'm talking about. The alternative legal protection for mentally incompetent signers. And it said notaries should be aware that they are not the only disinterested and official parties with the opportunity to protect incompetent individuals from signing instruments and being bound by those transactions. Even after a document has been notarized, the notarization and or the transaction itself could be challenged in court on the basis that the document signer lacked the mental competence to execute the instrument. So then the notary may not be the final arbiter is the word. Am I pronouncing that right?
Uh-huh.
On the issue
I think so.
of signer mental competence. So the notary is an important gatekeeper who has the authority to prevent the faulty signing and notarization of a document in the first place. So I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's why we have to definitely make sure that we're paying attention to everything going on around us because sometimes you can get into the zone where you're just like focused in on what you're doing and you're not really paying attention to what's going on around you. And you could be the person to say, hey, wait, this doesn't look right. Or it's not feeling right, and then you have to make that judgment call to say, hey, we're not going to do this. I don't think this person is willing, or they don't seem like they're aware. And the family may be like, oh, no, 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 they know. We talked about it before. No, but I'm here now, and I have to feel confident that they are willing and aware of what's going on as far as this notarization transaction goes.
I'm glad this reading this because I have the one I'm gonna do right now. She is for the grandmother, my friend's grandmother, but the reason why they delayed it, 'cause I was supposed to go earlier, Donna, is because the grandmother, I guess she didn't sleep when she was supposed to, or she had a hard time. So then she didn't. She was feeling groggy still. So they said,
Okay.
well, we'll let her rest a little bit more, or till she comes about. So that's why they just told me right now. Say anytime you want to come over. And
Good.
so um, but I didn't want to do it too late because I've been having late nights, so I'm kind of tired now myself, So,
Okay.
but yeah, so this is good. So what I'm gonna look for to make sure that she's fully alert or alert enough that she understands what I'm saying to her and I'm asking her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think this
All
is
right.
important, especially with the older folks,
Yes.
because we're caregiving for one. That's why I didn't finish, is because we're trying to take care of this elderly lady. And if I was a notary and asking her, knowing who she is, to notarize something, it's like, she is so, one minute she's smart, next minute she's out of it. And it's like, yeah, there's that fine line you have to watch for, because she's tough.
Okay. Okay. Now, were there any parts of this particular chapter you thought were incredibly unique, out of place, thought-provoking, or disturbing?
I don't think so.
No, it was good to get the information about the minors and you know.
Yeah. I had highlighted here where it was saying, the notary should record in the notary journal entry the age of the minor signer and the name and relationship of anyone attending with the minor at the
Yeah.
notarial ceremony. Additionally, the notary should record the information elicited to make the determination of whether to proceed. The notary should obtain the signature of both the minor and the accompanying parent, guardian, or attorney in the journal. So I thought that was pretty thought provoking. I have yet to have to notarize a document where a minor was signing. But it's good information to know because you don't know when that may come about. Because it does happen. It does happen.
It's a good thing to carry this book with you. I think I'll be carrying this book and my other books for a while. Yeah.
Well, I think it's all, I mean, I never really thought about the mental capacity. I know we needed to look for it, but never this deep or going into that. So I think the whole thing is just kind of, yeah, I need to reread it and reread it as I go.
Absolutely. And that you just answered that question. Did you reread any passages? I definitely did when it came to the minors, because just it just kind of catches you off guard, because you automatically just think you're only going to be notarizing for people who are considered legal adults. You just never really think no, I'm not going to have to notarize for anyone under 18, and you may have to.
And I had to do one that it was for the child. He was a minor, and it was for permission for rodeos, something to do with rodeos and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I didn't think anything of it, but his parents came and said, no, we need to sign this. And they just kind of filled me in because they have to do it every year. They have to have a notarized form. We're in Montana, so rodeos are a pretty big thing here
too. I live on the Central Coast, so that's good to know. I know. You know what? Talking about the open-ended questions, the yes and no responses, that's like asking a child, "How was your day?" Okay, so we gotta make sure that we ask. We gotta make sure that we get more than just a yes or no, or
absolutely
definitive answers for sure.
I started thinking, what about having cards available so that if you do have to ask questions, you can ask the right questions.
That's a good idea. If
because when I go to signings or notarizations, I get nervous and I don't think of these things. So it's always kind of nice to have little cheat sheets.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that is a good idea to have some good open-ended questions to assess the willingness and awareness of a signer. If it comes into question, I think that's a really good idea. A really good idea. Now, did you end up doing any extra research on anything presented in this chapter?
No, I haven't had a chance, other than rereading a lot of my materials, my notary classwork book stuff. That's prompted me. Well, I guess I have in that sense because of the oaths, the previous, like 11 and 12 and that.
Yeah.
Especially going into my first signing. I'm like, okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
So.
Did anything surprise you about the chapter, reading the chapter 13?
Yeah.
Now,
Nice.
I haven't had the opportunity to notarize for anyone who is blind or visually impaired, but I did it did make me feel good to see that I am able to at least read the document to them. You know, if the document has not been read to them, you are able to read the document to them prior to them signing. And so, I mean, you can't explain or elaborate or anything. You have to read it as is, and then they have to, you know, just tell you if they understand what they read. So, yeah. So I thought that was good. Do you have a new perspective as a result of reading this chapter? I definitely
Yeah,
learned something I
Usually
didn't
so.
know before, so.
yeah.
All
I'm
right.
always learning something new in these. But I gotta get going, ladies.
All right. Good
All right.
luck.
Thank you. I'll
Good
see you next.
luck. Let us know how it goes.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
send you a message in the chat.
All righty.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
All right, Donna, we're going to move to chapter 14.
Okay.
Oh, let's see. Any quotes or passages that we found particularly compelling in chapter 14?
Now let's see.
Let me see if I want to highlight it here. Gotta hold this up because it's light is making the yellow disappear. Hold on. Oh, so this one here. So when you're making the judgment, the common sense judgment call, you know, individuals, they may just feel pressure to sign a document because of financial difficulties, illness, or injury, or they just may be emotionally upset. But it doesn't mean that they don't want to sign the document. It just means that because of everything that's going on, they're just stressed, you know, and they want to just kind of get this all over with. So being able to tell the difference between the two, I found that
And
very
that I
interesting
think could be
because,
the hard part. I think that's where asking the questions, and I think some of that is the hard part
hmm
of that.
yes, yes,
Now I can't
absolutely.
remember which chapter it was where they asked all the signers to leave the room,
hmm
or not the signers, but everybody who isn't involved in signing to leave the
Right.
room. Did I read that somewhere? It's
Hmm.
sticking in my head, and I don't know where I found it.
Hmm.
I don't remember
Yeah,
which
it's on
chapter
chapter
number.
199, on page 199.
199.
hmm It's under the practice tip, temporarily excluding non-signers from the ceremony.
Oh, okay. I know I read it somewhere, and I
hmm
thought I never thought about that. And I
hmm
guess if you're in question with that person as to are they under duress and being made to do it, or is it, are they just genuinely upset? It might be worth asking everybody, let me,
Right.
can you leave the room and let me just do a one-on-one and
Yep,
talk to them on that.
absolutely. Yep. It said it's a good idea to have the signing occur when only the notary and signer are together.
Mhm.
hmm So it says court opinions have rightly observed that when the signer executes a present signature of the document to be notarized in the presence of the notary, such signing is willingly made, and the notary need not ask if the signing is being voluntarily done. But it says that, you know, a notary should take reasonable steps calculated to assess willingly by observing, conversing with, and questioning the signer.
Mhm.
Let's
And
see.
that's all just carrying on that we've learned is just carrying on a conversation with them,
Yep,
not just coming in and
absolutely.
immediately getting started. Have a
I like
conversation
it.
with them and talk to them and get to
Exactly.
know
hmm Yes, absolutely. And it was saying, you know, ideally, you know, it would be nice for notarial certificates or journals to have like a little box or a space that you could check off designating that you did assess for willingness and awareness.
them. Right. I think they should, but
Yeah,
they don't, or at least the one I have doesn't.
right. But we could always write it in the notes or additional information section if we have space to do so.
Well, we're getting so much information on stuff that we're supposed to put in our journal, our little notes
I
section.
know. I know.
Make it
Gonna have to make a whole
that
little list.
small.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, did you end up doing any extra research on anything that you read in chapter 14?
I did not. But like
Yeah,
I
me
said, I've
neither.
been with taking care of this lady. It's like I have much time for nothing. So,
Oh, I understand. I understand. Yeah, I was telling Kareen, me and my family had COVID for Christmas, so we
oh
had our own little
no,
issues over here. Yeah, it was very mild, thankfully. So,
that's good.
yeah. So we all just had colds and we're stuck in the bed and not really want to do much.
Yeah,
And even
yeah.
still, me and my husband, we kind of get tired just trying to do regular tasks around the house. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
And that
All
tiredness
right.
kind of sticks with you for a while after you have it. So,
Yeah. And I still have this little scratchiness in my throat and this little cough too. So,
hmm
yeah. All right, let's jump on to 15. Getting right on through. I really enjoyed chapter 15, I will say,
why?
because I always enjoy reading more into the jurats and the affidavits and the oath affirmations, because they're all the same for the most part.
hmm
They all require you to have to recite that oath affirmation, but having to also list that in your note section, that the oath and affirmation was administered. You know, we really don't give enough credit to our journals. It really gives a detailed description of everything that happened for that notarization, and just having those little tidbits in the additional information and notes can make or break, the validity of that
Right.
transaction,
Yeah.
and it just really, um, it really I already felt like my, position as a notary public was important, but it really heightens that feeling, you know, reading that you could, be the deal breaker, for
Mhm.
a transaction that is being, what's the word? Challenged in court.
Challenged.
Yeah. So,
Well, and it does. It makes you feel like, wow, this job is, doing this is really important. I didn't realize how much.
mhm.
Um, oh, yeah. I mean, the words. It's like I never realized.
Yeah,
We went to court. How much, or the
right.
biggest part we play
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
in what we record and how we record it. And I'm starting
Mm-hmm.
to, yeah. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah. It's really surprising. And
And
I never thought, oh no, go ahead.
go. No, you're fine.
No, I was just gonna say I never thought to look up the word jurat. Like, have you ever just wanted to know what it meant? Like, what's a jurat?
Hadn't occurred to me. No.
No, I never did. And so when I was reading here, it said the synonym for jurat is verification on oath of affirmation. I'm like, oh, okay. I just thought it was just a fancy legal term that they just came up with. I didn't know what the meaning of it was.
That's verification.
So
Yeah.
so I learned something new, something
Yeah.
else new.
Well, see, and it's just like for oath and affirmation, I never really thought about it being different. For some reason, I guess it never clicked.
Hmm.
It's the wording that was different
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
And when I read this, and it's like, oh, I never thought about that. And for
Hmm.
some reason, when I went back, because I read this really quick tonight, it's like, oh, it clicked. Like, oh, now I know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Um, I when I first started and I made my little index cards, that's when I end up learning the differences. A person will affirm on their own honor or take an oath onto God, So I was like, oh, okay. So when I made my cards, that's when I found out the difference as well.
mm,
And so yeah.
it's kind of
Let's
fun when those
see.
things a little click, a little light bulb goes off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I just kind of just highlighted this first, second, third, fourth. Just talking about the administration of the oath and affirmation and
Mm.
um, basically, making sure you follow that procedure because a lot of notaries don't. we're just like, okay, whatever, just, and I'm like, you don't realize how important it is because, like, if it was to go to court to be challenged, those attorneys are trained to pull out little insignificant gaps that you made that you probably would never even thought of. And
Right.
so they could say, well, we see that this was a jurat, but we don't see that you notated that an oath affirmation was administered. So was it? Well, yeah, it was. Well, how do we know that? And you'd be looking like, ah. Like
Another thing to record.
uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. And let's see. What else did I highlight in here? And then it was just saying, how when you have the person recite the oath, how you're basically making them to um, attest that the information contained in the document is truthful. And it was saying that you're not specifically asking them if their name is too, but the name is a part of the contents of the document. So it's a two for all. Are you, you know, swearing or affirming that the contents of this document, period, are true?
Right, right.
So yeah.
Well, and I'd like the
And
little
then
written reminder on page 213
mm-hmm.
on it, where it tells you write it in the front of your journal. So
Yeah.
it's readily available. And I like
Mm-hmm.
that because you have some note cards with it. But to keep from fumbling around and grabbing the note cards and all that, have it right there and you can just open it up and there it is. I like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Let me see. Was there anything else in 15? Hmm. It's basically just repeating what we already said, making
Right.
sure you notate that you administered it in the entry. And then I love how he always puts in here, make sure you proofread because people, they kind of get it confused. Like, well, we're not supposed to read, the documents that we're signing. Well, you got to read the certificate so you know what to do. The certificate is telling you what you're supposed to do for that act. So, and then you want to make sure that there are no errors made on the certificate. So you got to proofread. That's just it. I mean, you got to proofread because once you leave, you can't come back like, oh, I forgot something. No, you have to start the whole process all over again.
Right.
So you
Yep.
got to proofread.
Well, and
So I
that's why I
think
like
people
having
get
them give me a
confused.
copy of the certificate. Before I go to they say, well, I want you to do this. Well, can
Absolutely.
you send me a copy of the certificate
Mm-hmm.
so I can look at it, just so I know ahead
Mm-hmm.
of time what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Keeps the surprises away.
It sure does. All right. Let's jump on to 16. Signing by mark and physical disabilities. I really
And this is
enjoyed this
one I
one
didn't quite
because
get to. I'm going to listen and
oh,
I'm going to glance because I haven't gotten to this one yet. So, but I understand
I
the
enjoy,
mark thing. So I get that.
yeah. Mhm. I enjoy reading this part. I enjoy reading about it because like you said, the more you read about it, the more it's kind of etched in your brain on what to do because
Right.
it's just not a cut and dry signing. It's more that you have to do. You have to have the two witnesses. You have to have one witness sign, that this is the signer's mark and then sign beside it. And then the other witness is witnessing the signer sign for the signer mark. So it's like, remembering those steps is
Mm-hmm.
really important, and then making sure that you check with your state to see if there's a specific certificate that they prefer you to use. I know for my state, I do have a certificate that I can use if there's going to be a signature by mark. So, just having that information is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Um, and I had highlighted on page 220, right up under 16.1 in the second little paragraph here. The most common method for signing by a mark is for signers to execute an X, but they also can use some other mark too. And it was stating here in the case illustration on 221 how an elderly and terminally ill cancer patient, she was in the hospital, and she had made a signature stamp with an image of her hand written signature because her hand would get so shaky, you know. And it
Mhm.
was also saying, don't force a person, like, for people who have a condition where they can't keep their hands still, if they're embarrassed to sign their name, don't force them to sign their name, you know. But it was also saying if they don't have any other documents to show that they're signing by mark, then that kind of, but you can always make a note saying, signer decided to sign by mark due to, you know, hand not, or something, just make a notation in there so that they'll have it because it was saying this person died shortly after. And when it was brought to court, um, it wasn't thrown out. It was acceptable, that she used the stamp, but it definitely was still challenged, because we're like, no, they're like, this is a stamp. And they're even trying to say maybe the friend forced her. And then they found out, no, that wasn't the case. So I
Well, and I
enjoyed
can
that
see that
case.
being a stamp, anybody could get their hands on that stamp,
True. Very true.
so I could see that.
But the good thing was that the notary had um notes for the entry in there, you know, to prove what went on. So
And
that's
that
why,
shows how important that is.
hmm it said that there was enough convincing evidence in the notary's journal of the notary's diligence and trustworthiness, and there was no evidence of any corruption. So I was like, yeah, see, and we don't, well, not us in particular, but some notaries, they just don't understand how important that notary record, journal record is.
Uh-huh. Well, and I don't that, and that's where we go back to the states that don't require journals.
Like mine's, my state does
Why
not
would
require a journal.
you not have one? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just going through this book, it's like, it's evident you
hmm
need to have those copies.
hmm Yeah. And then here, how it's on 223, what I was just mentioning about the additional procedures you may have to take when you're doing signature by mark. It was, let me see, 1, 2, 3 in the third paragraph. It says some other jurisdictions have enacted notary laws which treat signatures by mark as special enough to warrant additional notarial procedures to assure the legitimacy of the signer's desires to obtain notarizations. And it was
I'll
saying,
have to
for
check our
example,
law.
there may need to be 1 or 2 witnesses to the signing by mark. I know my state, they do want 2 witnesses, but in others it may be 1. So
Mhm.
definitely,
Gotta check that.
looking that up. Right. Let's see what else I had from here.
I kind of glanced through some of the tips, and some of the tips are pretty good, like surrogate signature on an instrument
hmm
and the
hmm
wording, surrogates and all that. It's
Yeah. Where if you were subscribed to if you were to subscribe the person's name yourself, having a certificate that's going to state that
Mhm.
that what was done. And then it had the 2 examples in the back here of the certificates. So you can see how it's filled out when you use a specific certificate. So this one, Giraffe for signer with disability. I think this is the one, yeah, where the notary signed the name for them on 228. And then the
Yeah, I'm
other
looking
one
at it. Yeah.
was just with the witnesses and the notary didn't sign it. So I did, those are some really good examples to see with the signature by mark.
Mhm.
And that is it. We got through that quick.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess moving on, we'll do now
17
17 is
through
lengthy. 17 is lengthy because it's talking about the notary journal
journals.
records. So let me see. We may have to just do. Let me see
Probably a
how
lot
much is
right there.
we may have to just do 17 and 18
Okay,
this time. Just because 17 is so long. Instead of doing the 3, do 17 and 18
okay,
um
that sounds
the next
good.
week. Yeah, we'll do that the next week.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Okay.
And this time I'll get the time to do it, so.
Okay. All right. Well, I will see you next week at the
All
same
right,
time, same place, 17
yep,
to 18.
all right, sounds good.
All right.
Can't wait.
All
All
right.
right, talk to you later.
All right. All right. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Go enjoy dinner. See ya.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.